Hi, everybody. Welcome to Earth, a Love Story. I'm your host, Robin Lassiter. I'm saying that not knowing if I will ever release this little travel log, this truck talk. Um, Jim loved these, by the way. So as soon as I thought maybe I need to do one of those, I thought of Jim. Um, the world is weird, and I want to do this talk because I wonder if it's just me and a few of my friends. We're all going through something that's really wild, and I'm curious if it is extending out into the collective, or if it's just, if it's just us. So I don't even kind of know how to wrap my head around it. It feels like this very new energy coming in that, at the end of the day, I guess the easiest way to express it is that it's just completely groundless. Like, there's no guardrails, there's no safety nets, there's no uh, instructions, there's no footing, even the groundedness. Like, there's just no ground. And the only thing to hold on to is reality as I perceive it, as I make it, meaning that I apply to things, and I have to apply it because it doesn't exist externally. And the way that that's manifesting is through, as if you've listened to the podcast for a while, you know that most of my shadow stuff is around relationships and men, and how messy that's been, and problematic, and like all the therapy and the drama and the trauma and all the things. And it's been the driving force of my one of the driving forces of my evolution. And I'm so grateful for it. And it's been really hard, and it's very frustrating and strange. Things happen and I don't know why. I can't see the patterns. It's shadow stuff. Like, the definition of shadow material is that you don't know it's that. Like, you can't see it. I can see the result of it. I can see what happens because it exists. I can see the end result. And I know it's pointing to something, but I can't see it. So that's been many, many years of my life, is working with, approaching, integrating, getting to know that shadow material. And I've done so much work around it. And the other piece of this is somatics, right? Like the body, the body intelligence, the body without the mind, the stuff that's stored in the nervous system and in the physical body, like the muscles and tissue and sensations, and um, from the past, right? Like, something happened in the past, and the body responded and reacted and wasn't able to complete the activation cycle, and so it gets stuck in the body. So I I need to do a whole episode on somatics, but I I just don't have the capacity for it right now. So, but anyway, capacity, like, all of that it's about building capacity to feel the sensations that are held in the body from the past. And it's liberating. It's like, and it's very uncomfortable. Like, it can be really, really uncomfortable when just pure sensation, feelings, emotions, sensations coming through the body that feel like danger, that feel like, yeah, it's really, really wild. And so building capacity to hold that, let it arise, let it move through. And then it's like clearing out the past from the body. I call it the body shadow. It's just like we have a psychological shadow that I was talking about before. Like, there's a body shadow, and it's all the stuff that we can't see that we're holding. And then when it clears, it's very physical. It's like, it's helping us connect in and be with the body in the present moment. But this is my experience, before we can get to the present, the past has to get out of the body. And so that's been my experience and what I've been working on and through for years. And it does take years, like, sorry, guys. um, when I first started this work and I heard like, oh yeah, it's like 2-3 years, I was like, oh, not for me though, because I'm so smart and special. Like, and who would do this work if we knew it took years? But it's like the fastest way to go is slow, because the body has to feel safe enough. This, like, the whole system, and or think about it in archetypes or like inner children, personified parts, like however, whatever framework we use, that all has to feel safe enough. The container has to be safe enough for it to be expressed, and it takes a really long time for that to happen. So but like, I am convinced that it's possible because I'm living it. I don't talk about things from a place of authority unless it's come through my body, unless I've lived it. And I have lived this, and I've seen it with other people, and I know that it's real. I know that it's possible, but it's fucking trippy and psychedelic and on the edge. It's not like this normal kind of whatever we perceive, like a therapy session to be, where you sit and talk and then you just feel better. And like, that's 100%, it happens. Anyway, I digress. And my point is, like, it's wild. It's really, really wild. I love therapy. I needed it. We all need, like, that's for the mind part, the cognition, like understanding ourselves and our parts and all of these things. And then when it gets to the body, my experience is that it's just a whole other ballgame. So it's this clearing of the past from the body. And what is happening is then I'm coming into the present more and more and more. I'm not operating from the old patterns that have been running the body for so long. So it feels like completely uncharted territory. And the wildest thing, now I'm giving like all that framework so I can say this, is that all of a sudden, all of the things that I had traditional, like that have been kind of pathologized and probably needed to be pathologized so that I could understand, so that I could build, like, what's ancient, what's anxious attachment, what's avoidant attached, what's disorganized attached, like, what is trauma, what is the nervous system, like all of these things in a framework of kind of, a psychological Western framework needed. And now it's like that's falling away. I can still see my parts. I can see the behaviors that are resulting from shadows. But instead of any pathologizing, I'm like living into on like my desire. I'm letting desire show me, and I'm responding to it in the moment, and instead of repressing it and pathologizing it. And I don't know if this is a good idea, so please don't ever take my advice. Like, this is not prescriptive, but I'm just sharing what me and several other people that are very close to me are going through. It's like, instead of shutting it down, pathologizing it, like, oh, I have this desire to, like, I'll just be very blunt, like, I'm dating men, and I'm listening to my body instead of my head. And I'm allowing things to play out that I would never have allowed to play out because because it was so messy before. Like, I really shut everything down. And I think that was smart and required. It was a mess. So I really shut everything down, like really shut down sex and anything that felt like close to those edges felt really unsafe. And now it's like, that's not the case. I'm coming into the present moment with it, following my desire. And by desire, I think I just mean like life herself, the goddess, like this impulse of life. And I'm doing it within the context of all these tools that I have, within the context of capacity, hugely within the context of ethics, which I did not have in my life before around this stuff. I didn't have access to that. The shadow was running things too much. I would blow past my own value systems and moral standards and everything. And that's not happening now. I am keeping very ethical around this. I'm saying things very clearly to people, to men. Like, I'm telling them where I am, what I want, what I'm doing, whether, I intend to just see them or see other people, or what kind of relationship, what kind of framework. If it doesn't work, then I don't do it. I'm really, 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 really trying to keep my ethics around this, which I didn't have before. So in that safety of ethics and self-awareness, as much as I have, there, of course, there's still a lot of shadows that I can't see, but the framework of those things, I am choosing to stop repressing stuff. And it is creating this wild ride. And it's forcing me to, it's not forcing me. I am taking the opportunity to look at habits and patterns that arise in relation to circumstances. So, for example, I went on a date yesterday, and we had really amazing chemistry, like texting, right? Whatever, as one does. And I really, really was excited about this guy. Like, great on paper, very attractive, all the things. Really interesting. We had been talking for like 2 weeks or something, like a while. And so I went and met him and went on a date. And the minute that I saw him, I was like, oh, not who I thought. Like, interesting, looks different than I expected him to look. Fine, not unattractive, just different. Sat down, we started talking, we had dinner, and I'm watching myself, and I just don't feel the thing. That's it. Not like, he's still the same person, but our bodies hadn't met yet. And the body is like is the compass right now, and it can't not be. It's like the vessel that life herself is moving through, and it is the compass. And so I sat down and had dinner with this guy, and we talked, and then we like started walking around the downtown area and like hanging out, and he was like, can I hold your hand? And I said yes, and I should have said no because I didn't feel it. And so I was like really watching myself, like, look how you are people please, like fawning, basically people pleasing, doing something you don't want to do because you don't want to upset him, hurt his feelings, whatever. And so that happened probably 3 or 4 times where he said, can I hold your hand? Is it okay if I put my arm around you? And I was like, but it wasn't, and I shouldn't have done that. And so at some point, he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'm having a good time. I'm trying to get to know you. Honestly, I'm just not feeling the thing. And then he got really, really upset. Of course, like, he was hurt. It's okay. I totally understand. But it just went from bad to worse quickly, and it was really uncomfortable. And the whole time, again, like, I'm watching all of my old responses play out. At one point I apologized. I was like, I'm sorry. I just don't feel the thing. He's like, well, we had such good chemistry during text, and I thought we were on the same page. And I was like, yeah, I'm sorry. And then I was like, wow, do I need to be sorry for this? Or am I conditioned to respond in a way that diminishes my own power and knowing? Like, I don't owe anybody anything. It's okay that I didn't feel the thing. And he reacted in a way that's also understandable, but wasn't very mature. And instead of being like, yeah, dude, that happens, and I know it's nothing personal, and who knows, chemistry's weird, and anyway, thanks for the dinner, and I'll see you another, like, good luck and whatever, he got very weird. And very weird. It was not great. Anyway, all that to say is, like, I chose to go into that experience, and it was messy, and I learned so much from it. But I'm entering into the world and following, like letting things happen in the moment instead of years of doing all of the internal work. It's like the inner work is becoming external. And it's very, very trippy. And it feels dangerous. It feels kind of dangerous. Like, what if I fall off an edge? And I'm really having to trust myself, and I'm having to create the framework and the context. And nobody's going to create it for me. There are no guide rails. Are guide rails a thing? Guardrails? Guidelines? Except for my own knowing, my own strength, my own ethics, my own vulnerability. Like, I'm leaning into this radical honesty with men. And I have to say, I'm sure just as desperately as women are craving that, my experience with this is men are craving that. Like, let's be honest and really talk to each other. And the danger of that is real, because it's not happening behind any facades of like how we do this. And by how we do this, I mean like how, like the social constructs that have been put in place, like, oh, I'm supposed to date somebody, and then after an appropriate amount of time, then there's sex that's introduced, and then after that appropriate amount of time, then we become, like a relationship, and then maybe we get married, and then we blend our lives together, and da 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 da. Like, I'm just deconditioning from that as the norm. I'm still deconditioning from that as the norm, and I'm trying to figure out what it is that I want. And it's happening with my business as well. It's like I'm watching how often I restrict myself and hold back from saying things a particular way because I have an imaginary person inside my head, and honest to God, it's 9 times out of 10, it's a man. I have this imaginary man inside my head who I'm checking with. Is it too much? Am I too weird? Is it too big? Am I going to offend someone if I don't keep it broad enough? Am I going to say the wrong thing? Am I going to, is someone going to misunderstand me? And I'm checking with this imaginary man in my head. And I'm watching myself do it. And so I'm pushing that edge as well. I've really been pushing my edges. And again, within the context of like all the tools, all the capacity, all the work that I've done. It's not just being unconsciously messy for no reason. But I think that that's how it looks from the outside. And when I say I think that's how it looks from the outside, I mean that's how it looks to the man inside my head, is that I'm being irresponsible, messy, too much, in denial, unaware of my shadows, need to like tone it down, rein it in. And I'm just like, I can see it so clearly, and I'm pushing back against that, and I'm calling it deconditioning from the overculture. And then what the result of that is this bizarre reality where there's no ground. Like, there's nobody to check with. There's nobody to check with except for myself. And that's what deconditioning from the overculture is looking like for me right now. And I have no idea if anybody understands or can relate to this. Normally when I have stuff like this, which is all the time, I always feel like I'm on this edge of discovery, of unfolding, and then I feel like I need to let it translate into some sort of, prosaic, grounded context framework understanding, so then I can share it from that space. And what happens is that I miss it. Like, I want to talk to you guys about it and be like, is this happening for you too? But then I don't, because I don't want it to be messy and weird and too much. And then it feels like I'm always behind the curve with what I say on the podcast, what I write about, what I'm public with, what I'm expressing publicly is always a little bit behind the curve of what I'm actually going through. So even this, like, truck talk, travelogue, whatever the fuck, is pushing my edges. Like, what if I just say the thing as it's happening and be like, you guys too? Because it's so edgy. Because you could be like, nope, just you and your two weird friends. And that's okay if that happens. But it feels like a new level of the game or whatever is unfolding. It feels like a new layer, a new dimension of reality is accessible or becoming accessible, coming online. And I've said it a few times, not very explicitly, but I have this really strong sense that, in the past few years, the physical body and the emotional body arrived, and we're like, oh shit, we're in bodies and we have feelings, and we've been integrating that for years. That's why somatics is coming online. That's why, all of these things and then we get these new awarenesses like, oh shit, all the intrinsic things that we've been holding, even in the collective, like, racism, patriarchy, colonialism, whiteness, like all the things that we've been, our collective shadow has been holding, and then processing the grief around all of that, and and ways that we need to change and be different. And now what it feels like, so the physical body, emotional body coming online, and now what it feels like, the leading edge is I don't know what else to call it. It's like the sexual body, or call it life herself, or life force energy moving through the space that we've made in our bodies for this. And it's like, shit, it's a whole other dimension of reality. It's an entirely new dimension of reality where it feels like I, once again, don't have the map. And it's like, oh, right, because we're creating it. Like, we're creating the path as we're walking it. It's a leading edge of evolution of us. Right, guys? Just me? Okay. Should I do the closing so I don't have to re-record it later? Thank you to Morgan Jenks for our beautiful soundscapes. If you can understand what I'm talking about, if any of this resonates, if you would like to do one-on-one work with me, please reach out. I will say, since I am remembering, look at me remembering to do good like marketing stuff, I guess, that you're supposed to do when you have a business. I am putting together, I think I've mentioned a few times that there's going to be a fall cohort, and I wasn't sure what it was, and it was percolating and unfolding, and I just knew it was coming, but not sure exactly what it was. Well, turns out it's a women's group. So I do have a couple of men that are on the waiting list for a group, and there will be another group. And sorry, guys, but this one is for the ladies. So it starts on September 22nd, which is the equinox. And it is about deconditioning from the overculture as women. It's about coming into midlife and reclaiming our vital energy. It's about all the things that, I've been working with and known and holding in my body for so long. And now it's ripe. It's ripe. And it has to do with what I'm talking about. I'm living now into this edge of what is it like when we've deconditioned enough where life herself can move through us. So that's what this cohort's going to be. It's 12 weeks. We meet once a week. We already have a few women signed up. So I guess I need to put this episode out ASAP because September 22nd is right around the corner. And would love to have you in that cohort. Yeah, it's all alive right now. It's all alive for me right now. It's pretty exciting. And it's wild and it's weird. So hold on to your butts and visit me at honeyheart.org.